Okay, so we're going to tackle now the end of the level where you've been asked to build a sort of a pop-up menu that lets the player progress through the game. So this is actually quite a challenging one in terms of just knowing which level you're on and progressing to the next one. I'm actually using a weird bit of a hack eventually that I found. But we're going to start fairly basic. So first of all, we're going to make a regular blueprint class that's going to serve as our exit point. So in blueprints here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a normal blueprint class. It's going to be an actor and I'm going to call it level end. And just pop it there. Let's edit it. So this is going to need some form of collision. So let's just add maybe a box collision. Let's make it fairly sizable. Doesn't need to be particularly tall, but never mind. And maybe some sort of visual in there as well. So let's add a cube. Cube doesn't need to be a child of the box really. It is a bit big. Let's reset that because I made it a child. So yeah, let's shrink it down and just pop it there. I don't know. That'll do, won't it? Yeah. I'm not going to dwell too long on what things look like, but there we've got a zone that we can bump into. And with the box selected, I am going to make an overlap. And here we only want to beat the level if what was overlapped is the player. So I'm going to ask if the other actor equals the player character. So if the player character has overlapped this box, I'm going to branch on that. And this is where we want to make a new widget. So we're actually going to need to create the widget before we can come and spawn it into the world. So let's just save that for now. And then let's make a new widget blueprint. So right click, user interface, widget blueprint, and let's call this end of level. I'm going to put HUD again, just to differentiate between normal blueprints and widgets. So let's maybe just congratulate the player straight away. Let's have a piece of text. Let's anchor it to the top middle. Let's set the alignment to 0.5 and 0.5. I didn't actually set its position when I anchored that, so I'm going to control to set that. I'm going to drag it down a bit. I'm going to make the font a bit bigger. And just make it size to the content as well. So let's just put congratulations. You can change things like the font. You will have to import new fonts if you don't like this Roboto font, but you can edit the way things look. You can change the color and so on. But for the sake of this, that will do. And then we're going to have maybe a series of buttons. The one in the task is to go to the next level. I think first of all we'll just do one that lets us restart the current level. So I'm maybe going to put these in a vertical box. So let's add a vertical box. Make it a decent size. And this one I'm going to anchor to, let's maybe go top middle again. So it's underneath that text. I need to set its position, set its alignment to 0.5. Drag it down. And then into that vertical box we can now add some buttons. And that first one is fine. In the button itself I'm going to add some text. And this one, let's just have this one restart the current level, I think. So I'm actually going to change the content of the text field just to say restart, and we'll sort this one before we come back and look at the slightly more complicated options. So with the button selected now, so this is going to be the first bit of blueprint we do in the actual graph. So with that button selected, you might even want to rename it so that when you've got lots of them it's easy to find which button does which, does what. Let's call it restart, and then with it selected, just down in the details we can choose to have an on-clicked event, and that will take us into the graph. So we've clicked the restart button and this is dead easy. We just drag off it and we want to open level, but we need to know which level we're in. So this is where normally, like if we just wanted to jump back to the main menu, which we don't have yet, we might just put like main menu. If we had a level called main menu, it's that easy to jump back to it. But we just need to figure out which level we're currently on. So I'm going to drag another exec off here and I'm going to get current level. Gets the current level name, and then we can pass the current level's name in. It will convert it from a string to a name, but that will do it. So that restart button, if we get it on screen, should actually restart the current map. So I'm going to compile and save that, and in our level end we left it with this branch where we know a player has overlapped it, so that's where we want to create this widget. Create widget, and class is going to be end of level HUD, and the owning player is going to be the player controller. And we're going to run into a bit of a problem now. We know we need to add it to the viewport, so let's add to viewport and save, compile, blah blah blah, test now. So if I just run to the end, so you can see the widget pops up, but I can't interact with it. So it's there, the button's just begging to be clicked. But because we're still playing, we can't do anything. So this is where we need to add a few extra bits on, and it's why I mentioned the whole access to the owner before. So we're going to reuse this player controller. So we're going to drag off from it. First of all, we want to show the mouse. So we're going to set show mouse cursor. Might just want to use a reroute node here to keep things neat. Let's just drag that down there. And we want to toggle the mouse on. So I'm going to tick that. So that will give us a mouse cursor. That on its own just still isn't enough. We also want to set the input mode. So we'll kind of want to stop the player controlling its character and actually let them control this menu. So I'm going to drag off this again, and it actually doesn't matter if it's off that, but we want to set input mode. So set input mode to be UI only. Again, let's just reroute this, rerouting off a reroute. Widget to focus is this one here. And now that should be taking us in the right direction. So let's compile it and save it. I really should have put this closer to the start of the level. But now you can see pop up, we keep moving, so we can fix that as well. But now I actually have control of the mouse. I can hit restart and it does restart the level. I'm not currently in control of the player, so that's a bit weird as well. So we need to be careful of things like that. Okay, so a few things to sort of tweak and then undo or just guard against there. So we could see the mouse, we could interact with the UI, but the game was still running, so we can actually pause the game as well. So I'm just going to drag off this last bit, pause, set game paused to be true. So that should actually stop the game in its tracks, but also just before I go playing it and spending the time on that, I'm going to open up the there's a few ways to go with this. We could change the way the widget worked. So here we could actually change the input mode back to game, but just for the sake of putting it somewhere where I can guarantee the player has control when a level starts, in the player on the begin play section here, after we've added the player's HUD and stuff, we will also set the input mode back to game only. So when we've spawned the player's HUD, or just in the begin play in general, using reroutes, we're also going to set the input mode to game only. So that will hopefully combat all those problems. And it doesn't necessarily have to be here that we do that, but we've done a few things. So I can control the character, I can run to the end of the level. That then pauses the game. can even see it's paused during some motion blur there. And we can interact with this menu, and we can restart the level, and I am back in control of the character. So we've guarded against a number of issues there. I actually have the cursor hidden, which is not something I specifically did myself there. So you might also want to hide the cursor from within your player blueprint. But that all works quite nicely. We get the menu, we can restart the level. Let's just finish this video by adding an extra button that actually takes us to the next level. There's a number of ways to do it. I did mention a hacky way to do it before, but I think I'll try to avoid hacky things. So back in the end of level HUD, what we need is like a value coming into this blueprint, this widget, that controls the level we go to for the next button. So let's just actually add that button in. So in the designer view, I might just quickly duplicate the restart button. So Control W, we've now got this restart 1. I'm going to call that next level. So I'm going to edit the text there so it says the same. And I might just, while I'm here, add a bit of padding to this button. So with that button selected, padding here, I'm going to just add some at the top. Give it maybe 20 pixels just to space it out. You can focus on the layout, but there's one such option. So with that button selected, the next level button, I am going to add an onClicked event. And this time we still want to open a level, so we're still going to use this, but we need a reference to like the name of the next level, and this is going to change level to level. The next level is different. So at level 1 the next level is 2, at level 2 the next level is level 3, and so on. So it'd be good to have a variable here that we can edit from inside our level end blueprint. So let's add a variable. Let's call it next level, or next level name, and let's change its type. So instead of being a boolean, let's make this a name. And let's compile it. You might want to set a default value here so you can see it appears. Maybe here eventually, just to guard against stuff you have. I can't remember how they're written now. Is it task_1 like that in capitals? Let's check. It's lowercase, so I can fix that. So just as a failsafe, we'll default to task 1. But now we can open level, and we can use that variable. So if I hold control when I drag it in, it just gets the variable, and we can plug it in. So now it's just down to how do we edit this value in this widget blueprint. Because we're spawning it in using blueprint, we can't just change it through the Unreal details panel. So we'll have to do it in this level end blueprint. So we spawn this widget from there in, well, it's a very involved process, isn't it? But we can also now access it and pass that information in. So where you do this is up to you. It's probably neater to do it early on. But yeah, maybe if I move all these down, maybe get that node as well. Move those down a little bit. And then after we've added this widget to the viewport, we can also set next level. We can set that next level name. Let's just plug it in here, make sure it's wired up. And because it's a variable in that widget and we're making a reference to that widget, we can just set it here. But this, again, because this is tied in this particular blueprint, we might want a variable here that we can expose in the editor. So I'm actually going to drag off this, and I'm going to promote to variable, and I'm going to call it next level name again. So next level name, and I'm going to make it instance editable so that we can actually see it in our editor view. So if I've saved that and compiled it, this is quite an involved process, isn't it? But now if I select my level end, I've got this option now to tell it where I want to go next. I probably should have set the default value there, to be honest. But we could set this one because I'm in task 6. I want this to take me to task_7. So if I save that, play it, it's quite involved. Run into it. Next level takes me to task 7. Okay, so it's just being aware of that, but now it's dead easy to reuse that because we've got that as a blueprint and it's got that editable value. Maybe if I open task 7, and then I'm just going to ignore all the instructions and just go to where my player spawns and just add another version of that blueprint. So this level end, I can drag that in and I can change this next level name to task_8. Save that and just go back to task 6 to make sure it all changed together. You're just watching me run around a lot now, aren't you? So we can go to the next level there, and we can immediately beat level 7, go to the next level there, and it's all working. So it's just a case of a small edit every time you spawn that blueprint in, just making sure you update that that value, and I really should set a default for it, shouldn't I? So next level name here is a default. Let's put that to task 1. That's where I should have done the default rather than in the widget. But there are lots of different ways to go with that. It might just be that you're very particular about like making a new blueprint for each level. That's not ideal, it's not efficient, but as you're starting out you might just make a new blueprint for every level's end. You might also just bypass having that button entirely, where instead of having like a next level button, maybe you've got a button that takes you to level select, so you could get around it that way. Just try your best to efficiently tick the box of the tasks, but I think for the sake of getting that end of level menu up, I'm going to leave this particular video there for you to just keep experimenting with.